Welcome back to my channel. My name's Selena if you've just found me, and today I want to use up all my chilies that I've been growing, harvesting and collecting for the last couple of months. That's the dishwasher if you can hear it. So I've been storing my chilies in the freezer as I've harvested them, and then waiting until I had enough to build up to make a couple of hot sauce recipes. So the hot sauces I want to make today, I'm going to make two. One is a Caribbean hot sauce, and it's got things like lime and fruit and stuff like that in it, but it goes really nicely on Mexican food, tacos, burritos, things like that, and that's primarily how we use it. That sauce is a canned sauce. It's just a water bath canner, so anyone can do that at home. You don't need special canning equipment for water bath canning. And the other sauce I'm going to make is a Sriracha sauce, and that's a fermented style chili sauce. That one I'm going to get started today, and it needs to ferment for like 3 to 5 days. So it's not going to be finished today, although I will finish it up in this video. You'll see the end result in this. So that one doesn't need to be processed or canned in any way. It is stored in the fridge, and it won't be making like a ton of jars or anything. It's just going to be sort of like a single sauce amount. So to get started, we're going to make the Sriracha first. Okay, so for the Sriracha sauce, it's really simple. And before I begin, I will say if you're wanting to make these recipes at home, invest in some gloves, okay? I normally use gloves when I'm making any chili sauces, but I have run out and I'm not running to the shops today, so I'm just gonna have to wash my hands really, really thoroughly a few times when I'm finished today, because if you don't know, chilies have an oil in them, and that oil gets on your skin and it can burn, and especially if you get it into things like your eyes or your nose or your mouth, and it will last for a while when it's burning. So, and I have been growing hot style chilies. I have got, as you can see, many bags of frozen chilies. I've tried to color organize where I could, mainly because for the Sriracha, you just want to use red chili. When you're making the Caribbean hot sauce, you can use any color chili at all, and I've had that hot sauce come out rather green. I've had it sort of an orangey color, and I've also had it quite a red color, and that is purely dependent on the chili that you're using, as will be the heat component if you do make it yourself at home. For Sriracha, the fermented chili sauce, you're going to just need a blender or a food processor, something along those lines. Thermomix works well. I've got my kitchen machine. I am asked about this machine quite regularly. This is a Mistral kitchen, Smart Intelli kitchen machine. It's only available online in some places, I believe, in Australia. But any of those Thermomix style high performance blender, high performance processors will work for this. I don't use this machine for the cooking component that it has built into it. This is purely a food processor blender for me. So yeah, you can just get yourself any kind of really high powered food processor blender, and that will be equivalent to what I've got here today. So straight in to the bowl with the blade attachment. And we are just going to put almost all the ingredients in here, leaving out one ingredient, which is vinegar. That will go in at the very end in a few days' time once the ferment has happened. So straight in here, we're going to need about 500 grams of red chilies. So it is up to you if you want to de-seed your chili. I won't be, I'm throwing seeds and all in. And frozen as well. So you can either use fresh ones, or you can do what I've done and just gradually build up your quantity of chilies by throwing them in the freezer. So I've just taken the little tip off because I don't take that off when I pick them, purely because it's just easier to throw the whole thing straight in there. And just because these are my long red cayenne chilies, I'm throwing them in here. This does have scales built into it, so if you don't have a machine that has scales built into it, just grab some kitchen scales and weigh out about half a kilo or a pound roughly 500 grams, that's what you're looking for. So let's bring up my scales. And like I said, I'm throwing completely, you know, membrane, seed, all in there. These chilies are huge. All these little end bits and any seeds and things like that that you collect, they can be fed to chickens if you have them. Chickens can't taste the heat apparently, so, and they rather enjoy the chili, and it's quite good for them, so. So a tiny bit of green is okay, but you really want your sriracha to be a red sauce. It's not, it's quite beautiful and vibrant when it's made with pure red chili. All right, that is 500 grams of chili in my blender here. Scoop these up because we will be using these for the next hot sauce. So just pop them over there with my pile of other chilies. The other things you need to add, I've got one hiding in the back here. Okay, the other things you need to add to this, you want about 5 cloves of garlic. But measure with your heart when it comes to garlic. If you wanted a little bit more garlicky, add an extra clove. You want to add 1 tablespoon of salt. And I am using this as a tablespoon, and I have copped a fair bit of hate on my comment section about me using different spoons. Please don't stress about what spoon I'm using. If using a specific tablespoon is of utmost importance to you, make sure you do that. Otherwise, yeah, don't stress about what I'm doing over here. So we've got our garlic and our chili in here. We've got our salt. We want 1/2 cup of water. So I have 1/2 cup in here, straight into your blender. And we also want 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And that is it as far as the sriracha goes. There's only one other ingredient, and that is vinegar, but that gets added after we've had our fermentation. So pop the blender on, get this processed. It's not going to be perfectly smooth, but it's going to be pulpy. So you want to get it blended up. It's only going to take a few minutes, depending on your machine. So that only took less than a minute to process, and this is where we are at. Okay, it's pulpy, but you can see it's all well combined. So what you're going to need now is a clean jar with a capacity to hold what you've got here. You just want to get all of your pulp into your jar. And you can use a funnel if you've got a smaller opening. Okay. All right, there we go. Now all we need to do is cover that with a piece of cloth and a rubber band of some form. You don't want to put a lid on this because it needs to breathe. Because it is fermenting, there will be gases and things like that, but you don't want anything to get in there. So there we go. Set that aside. Set this aside. We're going to give this a stir every day for the next 3 to 5 days. So I'm going to set this on the shelf over there because that's usually where I store like my sourdough starter and things like that when I'm actively making sourdough, so that I don't forget I've got to feed it and things like that. So that's going to set over there. I'm going to put a reminder on my phone so that I stir this every day. You do need to stir it every day. Give it a good stir. Clean away any of the edges. Treat it like a little bit carefully. Look after it and it will be a lovely fermented chili at the end of the 3 to 5 days. So I'll come back at the end of the video and show you how it's sort of come along and how many days it's been. And we'll finish that off at the end of the video, okay? So I'm going to set that aside now and we'll move on to making the Caribbean hot sauce. So for our Caribbean hot sauce, this is one we're going to be canning in a water bath canner. And you've got a couple of options in how you make it. Because I used the blender this morning to make the Sriracha, I'm going to put all of the ingredients in that, give them a good chop, and then cook them down. If you haven't been using your blender for chilies or something already this morning, you don't have to do that. You can pop them all the ingredients straight into your saucepan and process it again at the end. I'll probably run it through again at the end just to make sure everything's nice and smooth, depending on how things have cooked down. Texture at the end of this sauce is entirely up to you. If you want it super, super smooth, you can even strain it. We like it with that little bit of chunk to it. So I'm going to start it off in the blender exactly the same as I did the Sriracha. And because it's got a lot of similar ingredients, I'm not cleaning this out, I'm not even rinsing it. So everything's just going straight in here. I do have a large saucepan ready to put everything into as well. So you're going to want some carrots. Here's some lovely, beautiful big carrots I pulled out of the garden just the other day. Pulled these out of the garden. Aren't they beautiful and big? So you just want to peel those. So about 300 grams of carrot, which will be these 2 large ones. 2 or 3 sort of regular sized carrots would be about that in weight. It helps if you do weigh things though. You will get more accurate results when you go to make them again. So that's 320 grams, I'm happy with that. We want about 1 kilo of onions, and I've got little bits and pieces of onion here. This was from last night's dinner that we didn't use, so we're just going to chop that. I've got frozen onion that we were growing. This is all I've got left of my frozen onions. Pop all of those in. I'm going to add my lime juice to this because I want this to process down, and we're going to need about half a litre or 480 mils roughly of lime juice. I did pick these limes this morning from our tree. We have got quite a few on there and they look and smell so good. My eyes are watering from the onions, but yep, they are delicious. That's a Tahitian lime. If you're looking for a lime tree, I recommend a Tahitian. It seems to be really beautiful. They're really nice and juicy, and I'm just going to be straining my juice into a bowl purely for ease of the fact that I've only got a little hand juicer here at the moment. My citrus juicer broke, so it's all by hand right now. And that means there's going to be seeds. So if you don't have access to fresh limes or they're too expensive at the moment and you're wanting to make this recipe, you can definitely use bottled lime juice. I've used it before, it works really well. You can also substitute your lime for lemon if you need to, but if you have a choice, definitely go with lime because it just adds a nicer flavour to your sauce. So I've got 4 limes that I've cut. I do have 4 more in case I need them. These are beautiful, large and juicy, as I said. If you're using little tiny limes, you might need quite a few more. Another thing I love about this sauce is I'm using so many of the things that we grow here on our property. So we've got an excess of limes, it's using up a few of those. The chilies that we've been growing constantly, it's using those up, and even our lemon, our onions that we grew, it's using those up as well. So I feel like this is one of those sauces that if you're growing your own things, you're really buying very few things to add to it. And it really is just a really incredibly delicious sauce. So there we go, that's how much lime juice I got out of those 4. I'll add that, see what that weighs to see if we need to add any more. And that's about half of what we need. So I'm going to keep juicing the rest of my limes until I get about half a litre of lime juice. And if you want to be really using up all of your leftovers, you can add your lime juice skins once you've finished juicing them to some vinegar and make a cleaning spray using the lime, basically the zest that is in the lime. Because I didn't pre-zest these or anything, to use that in a cooking purpose. So that's another way to use up your lime skins if you find you've used a lot like I have today. Okay, so that's our lime juice added. our onions and our carrots. We're going to add some garlic to this as well. And for that, we want about 8 cloves of garlic for this one. Okay, so what I want to do is get this processed and start cooking it on the stove. Then we'll start processing the chilies and things like that because they get added later. So give that a blitz. That's just those ingredients. The garlic, onion, carrot, lime juice. That's exactly what you want it to look like. It's pulpy, but it's nice and chopped up. Done the hard work for us. So straight into a large saucepan. We do want to add 700 mils of vinegar to this as well and get that boiling away on the stove, a nice gentle boil for 10 minutes. So get 700 mils of vinegar, just white vinegar. All right, pop that on the stove. So while our beginnings of our sauce are over there on the stove, we're going to put the rest of the ingredients through the food processor as well. So they're nicely chopped up and then they'll get added all together. So again, without rinsing out anything, straight back into this. You're going to want about 2 cups or 500 gram tin of pineapple, including the juice. You can substitute fresh pineapple. You can also substitute peaches or mangoes. I have made this recipe using all 3, pineapple, peach and mango, and it is just delicious with all 3. So it is up to you what you can get your hands on, but that is what you need. So I'm using the juice as well of just a 500 gram can of pineapple straight into the food processor. You need 1/2 cup of sugar straight in there. 2 teaspoons of salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to add 4 of those, but it is just 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we need about 80 chilies, all right? So that is why I added those ingredients first, because then we're just going to get into the chilies. And this one, you can add whatever color chili you like. And 80 is my approximate number. I'm just going to add what I know it usually looks like. You can add more chili if you want this to be hotter, and obviously you can add less and de-seed and demembrane if you want it to be milder in strength as well, because I'm happy to have the heat. I am just taking the stem tips off. And I've got a variety of, these are the pineapple chili, pineapple and dew, I think they were called. The long red one is the red cayenne. I also have a couple of jalapenos have gone in. I've used all sorts of chilies for this in the past, all sorts of chilies, and I've never had any problems. I think if you're going to use like a super hot one, like a habanero or something, I would add a few less, because, or at least mix them with some of the milder chili varieties out there. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm mixing them. These are some of those habaneros. Not habaneros, sorry. Jalapenos. That's what I'm adding. And yes, I am adding more than 80. I'm aware of that. I am also adding some of these super tiny ones, so I don't count them as being worth a full chili count, but the long cayenne ones are obviously worth more than one chili as well. 80 is the guideline, okay? So our carrot and onion mixture is boiling away lovely. It's nice, gentle simmering, so not exactly boiling. It's almost ready to add the rest of the ingredients. So I've got everything else in the food processor ready to be pulverized, and I'm going to do that now. Just get that to the same amount of pulpy thickness that the carrot and onion mixture was. Just going to give this a scrape down, make sure everything is getting mixed in well. I want everything sort of the same amount of texture in here. There you go, nice and pulpy. That is ready to go into the saucepan. And the reason mine is rather orange is, again, because I used a mixture of chilies. If you were just using red chilies, you would have a red chili sauce, okay? So that is ready to go into our saucepan. I'll just show you there, we are simmering away nicely. So we're just going to gently add in the chili component to this and let it simmer for another 10 minutes. I have turned the stove off just for a moment while we add our chili component. Just going to gently mix all that through before I put it back on the heat. So we do want to give this another 10 minutes of gentle simmering away. Give it a stir every now and then just so that you don't get anything sticking to the bottom of the pot. And then the sauce will be ready to be put into our jars and processed in a water bath canner so that we can keep it on the shelf until we have used it all up. I'm going to get my water bath canner prepared. Start to get the water heating in it. I'm going to get my jars ready, things like that while this is doing its simmer. So as I said, water bath canning does not require special equipment. However, because I have a pressure canner, I always use this for water bath canning as well. You can buy specific water bath canning pots, and essentially what they are is a really oversized pot with a rack in the bottom, okay? If you don't have any of this equipment and you still want to make some of this sauce or other water bath canned products, you can use a really large pot. You'll need a lid or something to put on the top. So I always use a baking tray because I don't want to use my pressure lid. And I just put the baking tray over this one. What you're going to need is a really large pot. You're also going to need a rack of some form that fits in the bottom. When I bought my pressure canner, it did come with this rack. I have since bought an additional rack so that I can stack my jars. If you don't have any of that and you're wanting to just use a really large pot, you can put a towel or a tea towel or something in the base of your pot and sit your jars on that. The jars can't be in contact with the pot directly, which is in contact with your direct heat. Okay, so you just need to do a little bit of preparation, that's all. Water bath canning does require the product to be submerged entirely in water for about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters roughly above the top of your jar, and that will then ensure it's completely processed properly. Okay, so there is something called steam canning as well. I have never done steam canning and I'm unfamiliar with it, but I believe the times are equivalent. But this is a 10-minute water bath process. So what we need to do before our jars go in, we need to get some water in our pot and we need to get it heating up, because you don't want to be putting hot sauce into hot jars and then into cold water. That will make the glass break and you will have wasted all of your produce, but also your time as well. So we need to get our water heating up. So I'm just going to put some water in my pot. It may not be enough by the time we actually go to can. And in that case, all I always do is I top up until my jars are completely submerged to the right level with boiling water. That's all I need to do. So get some water in your pot, get it started to heat while we prepare our jars. So I have shown you how to do canning in the past, but if you're new to canning or you just wanted to have a refresh, I have got my jars here. They're nice and clean. You do need to have perfectly clean jars. What I like to do before filling my jars is I just preheat them with some boiling water. Now, one of the reasons I do that is because then my hot sauce or whatever I'm making, going into my hot jar isn't going to create a thermal shock where it breaks my jar and I lose the sauce. So if I pour hot water into a jar and it cracks with just water in it, I know that that jar was no good. It had a hairline crack in it or it went under thermal shock in some way. But all I've wasted is some water. I haven't wasted any of my actual product that I've been spending time making. So I give my jars a warm or a preheat by putting boiling water in them, and I just let them sit for a couple of minutes before I'm ready to fill them. What you'll also need when you're doing canning is you're going to need vinegar, paper towel or a really clean cloth, and the lids need to have some kind of rubber on them. So the lids I'm using, because I'm using the canning Mason style jars with the 2-piece lid. So it has a lid flat and it has a ring. Okay, but these aren't the only canning jars you can use. Some people have great success reusing things like pasta jars and stuff like that as well. I don't use those. I prefer this style, but that's entirely up to you as well. And I would suggest, if you're wanting to get into canning, that you do some research, look into what jars have been successfully used and what you can afford for where you are. My sauce is bubbling away really nicely over here. And it's only got about 2 minutes until it's going to be ready for me to put in my jars. So that's why I've started heating them up now. You don't want to do that too soon, because otherwise you'll end up with things that are ready when other things are not. So trying to get everything ready at the same time. I've got some lids, I've got rings, I've got a ladle to spoon out. I have a funnel because filling jars can be messy. We don't want any product on the outside or in the screw ring part, especially none here where it needs to seal. Okay, our Caribbean hot sauce is ready to go. You can see it's a little pulpy. You can see seeds in it. That is exactly how we like to have it. If you want to make this and you want it a little bit smoother, you can run it through the blender again, or use like a stick blender to give it another pulverize. I'm not doing that today because I put it through the blender to begin with, and I'm happy that this is the texture we enjoy. So these jars were the warm ones, they're now still warm. I'm ready to fill them, and the water in the water bath is heating up nicely. So we're sort of timing well right now. So you do want a little bit of headspace in the top of your jar, don't fill it right to the rim. About there is good. That's about 2 centimetres, 2.5 centimetres from the top of the jar. This smells so good. It is the most delicious sauce. And it works really well with a few things. It doesn't have to be just like a Mexican hot sauce or something like that. It works really nice with just having it with chicken and fish and things like that as well. But we do love to have this particular sauce on our tacos. We've stopped even making other kinds of Mexican salsas and things like that because we just enjoy this one the most. And I put a little bit much in that one, so I'm just going to scoop some out. And I like to just do a few at a time, so I'm working on 4 at a time. And as you would have seen in other videos, we just want to get a nice amount of vinegar on a clean piece of paper towel or cloth and give that edge a really good clean. You don't want any food product in your seal because that will cause your seal to fail. If your seal fails, you can still use your sauce, but it's one that has been opened essentially. So it lives in your fridge and it needs to be used up in a quicker amount of time. The other ones, if the seals don't break and they are good, they are shelf stable for a significant amount of time. 18 months isn't unheard of. And we've always go through it far quicker than that. So we've never had anything last that long, but yeah, that's the joy of canning your own food, is that you can have it last for a lot longer than if it was just put in the fridge. Okay. I like to dip these lids either in the boiling water of the canner, or I run a bit of vinegar around the rim just to make sure they are extra clean. And you can get a special tool to do that, but I just use a little magnet and I'm just dipping it in some boiling water and straight on. Fingertip tight on your lid, which means it's done up and it's fingertip tight, not reefed on. So these 4 are ready to go into my water bath canner. As soon as that water bath is a bit warmer, I'm just going to keep going through and processing my jars of sauce until they are all done and ready to go into the canner. Those are hot jars, trust me, these are hot. That water is hot, hot, hot. Okay. All right, not quite a full jar there, but that's okay. And I think I can hear bubbling away in my water bath, so these should be ready to go straight in. So we are simmering, as you can see. All right, they are in here. So now what we need to do is allow this to come up to a boil. Once it starts boiling, we can pop that lid on, just so that we don't lose too much water in evaporation. That's the purpose of the lid. And once we are boiling, we can set a timer for 10 minutes, okay? It's gonna take 10 minutes to can these, and then we can turn it off and allow them to come down in temperature just a little for about 5 minutes. So wait for this to come to a boil and then start your timer for 10 minutes. So my jars have processed for 10 minutes and they've also been sitting in there for about 5 minutes with the lid off and the temperature off, so that they could just sort of come down in temperature slightly. So there they are. Now they just need to rest until tomorrow, when I can take off all the rings and check that the seals are lovely and that everything has worked out. If anything doesn't work out and you end up with a seal not sealing, just use that jar straight away, keep it in the fridge. Everything else will be fine to be stored for about 18 months. I'm just gonna get the rest of my jars out and then I'll see you once I have finished allowing my Sriracha sauce to ferment for 3 to 5 days, and I'll show you what we do from there. Okay, so it's been 3 days since we were making the Sriracha, and we've had 3 days of fermentation. Every day, all I've done is give this a stir and pop the cloth back on. It doesn't look any different. It has, like, it does smell slightly different, but it's mostly similar. It's hard to describe what it smells like, but it is very much a similar looking product that it was than when we put it in the jar. You obviously want to make sure you haven't had anything like mold grow. That's important. If you have had anything like mold grow, you won't be able to use your Sriracha, but this is good. It's only been 3 days. It's been covered the whole time that I wasn't stirring it. So to this, what we want to do is we need our blender. We need our blender back, just the blade in there. We're going to add all of our Sriracha and half a cup of vinegar. This recipe can be doubled and tripled as well if that's something you're wanting to do. I'm not sure if I said that the other day when I started making these chili sauces, but these can all be doubled or quantified as you like. So half a cup. There's a little more than half a cup there, that's okay. What we want to do is pulverize this, get this as smooth as possible before we strain it. You can do this in a blender. It doesn't have to be a food processor. It can be either, but you want this as smooth as possible. So whatever equipment you have that's going to get your Sriracha sauce perfectly smooth, that's the one you want to use. So that's taken about 1 minute. I've had this at full power, so as fast as it would go to get this as smooth as possible. What you want to do now, try not to get it on your skin because, again, it is chili. It's going to burn if you, get it in your eyes or anything like that. You'll need a saucepan and a sieve. And I'm inhaling the heat, if that makes sense. So the chili is definitely working because I'm breathing it in and I'm ready to start coughing as a result. So that is our beautiful Sriracha. You can see it's such gorgeous red color. And now you want to strain all this pulp out just through a sieve. Don't leave any behind. I'm just going to gently use my spatula to push my pulp through the sieve and get all the liquid chili sauce. Then we're just going to pop this on the stove and give it a cook, like simmer it gently, for about 10 minutes. It's about all it's going to take. Keep stirring it until you get all the liquid out and you're left with just a real pulpy paste. So I'm pretty happy with that. You can see I've just got a paste left behind. So I've got my pulp here and I've got my sauce there. Now all I need to do is pop this on the stove and let it just simmer gently for about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not going to throw my pulp away. I'm going to dehydrate it, and that is going to take as long as it takes. So I'll probably set my dehydrator for 10 hours at about 55 degrees and see how we go after those 10 hours. What this is going to make me is a really yummy chili sprinkle that, it replaces your Sriracha when you run out of it, like I had. And I've got some here from the last batch of Sriracha because we don't go through this nearly as quickly as we go through the sauce. But there you go, it dries out, it becomes crumbly. You can blitz that and turn it into a powder. My family actually like the crunchy little crumbles, and then we just sprinkle that on anything that you would put Sriracha on. So this way we're not going to waste it, but it's not what we need for our sauce. So this is an optional step. So I'm just trying to get that relatively even and thin so that I can pop it in my dehydrator. That's going to go in my dehydrator, and then that'll take however long it takes. Take your sauce over to the stove, and this smells so good already. Smells so good. It's so spicy and, you know, the classic smell of sriracha going on. It's going to be really delicious. So we just want to gently simmer that. I'm going to give it a stir because some of the liquid was thinner than other parts. So when I strained it, some of it was thicker than at the end there than the beginning. So I'm just going to give that a quick stir. We don't want it to boil or anything. We don't want it to get stuck to the bottom of our pan either. So keep an eye on it, don't walk away. Just a gentle simmer for 5 to 10 minutes. All right, it's been 10 minutes. This is smelling delicious. It's lovely and thick. It's like a saucier consistency now. Sriracha is a runny chili sauce though, so don't expect it to be super thick or anything like that. I'm just going to put it straight into a recycled bottle, and that's how we'll be serving it. If you had like an old sriracha bottle that you could wash out and use, that would be best because it has the little drippy sauce releaser, I guess, whatever that thing's called, the little drippy thing. We'll just be using a spoon. We'll just get this out with a spoon. So I'm just going to funnel this straight in. And I have labelled it because I don't want anyone to confuse this for some tomato sauce. That would not be good. So there you go, homemade sriracha. So we'll store this in the fridge and it'll last as long as it takes for us to use it. We've never had a problem with it, but there you go, homemade sriracha to go with our other chili sauces, and keep that one in the fridge, don't keep that one in the pantry. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have an abundance of chilies, give one of these recipes a try, if not both of them. They are delicious, and yeah, I mean, we got 8 jars out of, you know, a bunch of stuff that was growing in the garden, as that is, and then we've got the sriracha as well. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and I will catch you next time. See you later.